Today we are making a pumpkin pie cheesecake. This is perfect to serve during the holidays or if you're just a pumpkin lover. My name is Alyena and welcome to my kitchen. The first thing you're going to need to do is make your crust. You can use graham crackers for this, but I personally love Biscoff cookies and I think they add a great flavor to this cheesecake. So here I have 32 of my Biscoff cookies and I'm going to add all of this to my food processor. If you don't have a food processor, you can also just put all of these in a bag and like beat them up so they're crumbs. But using a food processor makes it way quicker. And while this blends, I'm actually gonna just pop my butter in the microwave so that it's completely melted, and I have 5 tablespoons of butter here. So let's blend these. And now it's a perfect crumbly texture. This is what we are looking for. And I can pop this back into my bowl. I personally think I might need a little bit more butter than, oh, one cookie did not crumble, than 5 tablespoons. But we're gonna start with 5 and see if we need to add more. And I'm actually just gonna blitz this one cookie that refused to blend. I feel like Biscoff is one of the best cookies, and the Biscoff butter, that's dangerous. I can't have it in this home. I eat too much of it. And often you add sugar to your crust, but as these are already fairly sweet cookies, I'm not adding any sugar to this. And I'm just going to add in my melted butter. So 5 tablespoons of melted butter going in. You want to get every last drop because this is what makes your crust stick together. So now we can just give this a stir. So I'm actually going to add about another 2 to 3 tablespoons of butter because even though it's sticking together, it's still fairly crumbly. And I find if my crust is too crumbly, it'll fall apart. So I think I'll probably add about 1 stick of butter total, about 8 tablespoons. So let's just pop this in the microwave. All right, and just a little bit more butter going in. So I'm gonna add just the little bit of a remaining butter to my pan just to grease it. Also, I recommend just putting some parchment paper down on the bottom of your pan so that when you're taking it out, it doesn't stick. And if I haven't mentioned it yet, you do wanna use a 9-inch pie dish. So now we can just dump all of our crust into it. So you can either use a spoon or a measuring cup to press this down. And I like it to go up the sides. And it looks like a lot, but actually once you start to press it down, it's not a crazy amount. So now that I've pressed my crust fully in, I'm just going to pop this in my oven at 350 degrees for 10 minutes. Now that my pie crust is in the oven, we can actually start on our cheesecake. So in your mixer, you're just going to add 16 ounces of cream cheese. This is 2 blocks of cream cheese. And I like to take these out of my fridge about an hour or 2 before I start baking so that they're room temperature. If you forget to do that, you can always just pop them in your microwave for about 10 seconds to warm it up, but you don't want these melted like the butter earlier. So here we have our 2 blocks of cream cheese. And to my cream cheese, I'm just going to add a 3/4 cup of brown sugar. And then I'm gonna turn this on medium speed and let it cream together for about 2 minutes. And every 30 seconds to a minute, I like to go in and just scrape down the sides because sometimes stuff gets stuck at the bottom and won't get mixed in. All right. Now that this is nice and creamy and smooth, we can add in a lot of our other ingredients because you're probably thinking, where's the pumpkin? So now it's time to add our pumpkin puree. So I have just a 3/4 cup of pumpkin puree going in. Next, I just have 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, as well as 2 tablespoons of heavy cream. I'm gonna use this. There we go. as well as 1 tablespoon of cornstarch, and half a teaspoon of lemon juice. Now, I love a nice spiced cheesecake, especially when you're having pumpkin pie. You need some spices in there. So here I have just 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, half a teaspoon of ginger, a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, as well as a 1/4 teaspoon of cardamom. And that's all going in. And this is optional, but you can always add just a dash of black pepper. And now we are going to beat this for about another 2 minutes. You want to try to get all the clumps out of there. Stop it, scrape down the sides of the bowl until it's nice and smooth. Okay, now that this is nice and smooth and there's no big clumps, if you have little ones, that's okay, but you just don't want any big clumps of cream cheese, we can add in our eggs. So I have 2 eggs right here, and I'm actually going to add these in while my mixer is going. So on medium speed, I'm gonna crack in 1 egg, let it fully mix in, and then crack in my 2nd egg. I'm gonna do 1 final scraping of the sides, and our cheesecake filling is done. Okay, our pie crust is out of the oven, and now we can pour in our filling. And I actually love making this pie the day before I'm serving it because it can chill overnight in the fridge. But if you are gonna do that, don't make your crust in advance because you actually do want your crust to be warm so that it helps bind the cheesecake to the crust. Now I've just dropped down my oven temperature to 325 degrees Fahrenheit, and we can pop in our pumpkin pie cheesecake and let it bake for around 40 to 45 minutes. You know it's done when it's almost fully set, but there is a slight wobble just in the middle. And if you want to check this at the 20-30 minute mark, see if your cheesecake is browning too quickly, you can always just add a piece of foil on top to stop it browning. And once you take your cheesecake out of the oven, you want to let it sit at room temperature for 1 hour before popping it in the fridge to cool. You want to cool it for at least 2 hours. I recommend overnight. It is the next day, and here we have our cheesecake. I just wrapped it up and put it in the fridge overnight, and it looks absolutely delicious. And the one thing I really look for in a cheesecake is no cracks, and our cheesecake did not crack at all. So before we can dig into it, we have to make our whipped cream because you can't have pumpkin pie without some whipped cream. So the first thing I have is just a very large bowl. And to that, I'm going to add 1 cup of heavy cream, 1 teaspoon of just granulated sugar to add a little bit of sweetness, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract because I just love vanilla extract. And this is optional. If you just want a traditional whipped cream, you can stop here. But if you really want to get that pumpkin vibe in there, I'm just adding a 1/4 teaspoon of my pumpkin pie spice. This also adds some color. It makes it a nice kind of beige tone. And now we can just beat it together. So I beat it pretty much until stiff peaks form. Now I'm just going to transfer all of my whipped cream to my piping bag. Of course, you don't have to do this. You can just add the whipped cream right on, but I want to make it pretty. So I'm adding it to my piping bag. And if you can tell, this has a different color than just traditional whipped cream. It has a nice little flecks of brown in there. I am so excited to try this because I was really wanting a piece last night, but I forced myself to be patient. So now it's time to try our cheesecake. Wow, that is so creamy. It's just the creamiest cheesecake I think I've ever had. And with that whipped cream on top and that Biscoff crust, I'm one happy camper. So if you would like to see some more of my cheesecake recipes, there will be a playlist right here or over here. Thank you so much for watching, and I wish you all a delicious cheesecake. Cheers! I also want to give a special shout out to Sally's Baking Addiction. I love all of her recipes, and this is where I got the recipe from. It is so delicious, so thank you, Sally.